This meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Viewing information can be found out on the district website. This meeting is now called to order. It is October 19th, 2022, and the time is 6:35 p.m. Our mission is to provide a safe and caring climate and culture in which we engage, inspire, educate, prepare, and empower all learners in partnership with their surrounding community to be successful in today's and tomorrow's society. Mr. Dahlgren, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and then can you please call roll?
Yes, I can. Scott Andreasen. Here. Natalie Copeland.
Here.
Al Dahlgren is here. Zach Dorholt. Dr. Les Green is not here this evening. Shannon Hawes.
Here.
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Here.
The following cabinet members and staff are present at the District Administration Office. Superintendent Dr. Lori Putnam, Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education Kay Nelson, Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Education Dr. Mike Rivard, Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations Tracy Flynn Bowe, Executive Director of Operations Gary Ganji, Media Technicians Paul Novak and Gordy Scott. Custodian on site is Steve Hain. The following cabinet members and staff are virtually present. Director of Equity Services, Ayan Omar. I think I saw her here.
Yep.
Director of Innovation and Instructional Technology, Ryan Cox. Executive Director of Community Education, Adam Holm. Executive Director of Finance and Business Services, Amy Scalarud. Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, Lori Posch. Executive Director of Research, Assessments and Enrollment, Donna Roper. And Executive Assistant, Jan McGuire.
Thank you. Next, I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's board meeting agenda.
So move.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Scott and a second by Natalie. Al, can you please call roll again?
Scott Andreasen.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren is yes. Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Shannon Hawes.
Yes.
Zach Dorholt. Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Thank you. Then we have the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of non-controversial items that the board adopts routinely without debate. Any single member may remove an item from the consent agenda by requesting removal at the time the consent agenda is moved for adoption. On tonight's consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes from September 7, 2022 and September 21, 2022. Item B, approval of bills and other financial transactions in the grand total amount of $3,722,508.60. Item C, approval of personnel staff changes. Item D, acceptance of grant awards and donations. And item E, quarterly expenditures for board members. Does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as read.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Monica and a second by Scott. Al, can you please call roll?
Monica Segura Schwartz.
Yes.
Scott Andreasen.
Yes.
Natalie Copeland.
Yes.
Al Dahlgren is yes. Zach Dorholt.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to information items. We have one information up tonight. We are going to see the North Junior High School presentation, and welcome Principal Brian Nutter. Glad to have you.
Okay, good evening, Director Haas, board members, Superintendent Putnam, and fellow District 742 families and community members. Welcome. I am Brian Nutter. I'm the proud principal of North Junior High. And over the next 15 or 20 minutes, hopefully not much more than that, I will be able to give you a quick update on things that have been taking place at North in the last year or so, and will be available for questions after that. So I'll go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about North Junior High in the frame of what we're doing with our continuous improvement plan at North and related to the district's strategic plan. So I will share with you our three focus areas relating to the district strategic plan, but also our continuous improvement plan at North. And so I will discuss first our focus area number one, which is on improving positive climate and culture at North Junior High, and our focus objectives under that focus area are to integrate social emotional learning supports for students and expand opportunities for student voice and choice. Our desired outcome at North in this focus area is a shared sense of community that's built on trust, collaboration, and safety. And now I'll tell you about some of the great things we are doing at North that are moving us toward achievement in this focus area. And so first, I would like to share something that is new and exciting at North, and that is Eagle Time. Eagle Time was born out of our pandemic win time, which was the what I need time that our students were using. And we have kind of saw that as a benefit during COVID, and it's something that we wanted to hang on to. And so we have built into our schedule at North this year a 30-minute block of time opposite each student's lunch period, where they are able to engage in an activity, could be enrichment, could be support, could be something that's just for fun or a creative or physical outlet for the student. And then have also built in their 1 day a week on Wednesdays specifically targeted at academics for support, enrichment, and extension activities for students on Wednesdays. And so I will share a little bit more about that in the next slide, but I'm really excited about what we're doing with Eagle Time because it is increasing that positive climate for our students because they are getting to choose what activities they participate in that 30 minutes opposite of their lunch period. And so it is also increasing their student voice and choice during that period. We're currently in our first rotation of Eagle Time. So our students have had about 3 weeks now of an activity that they chose to participate in. And I'm going to share with you on the next slide just a sampling of some of the activities. We have 34 Eagle Time teachers, each one offering something different. And so students have a wide variety of options to choose from during this time. And really, in addition to providing that academic support and enrichment on Wednesdays, we wanted to provide that creative and physical outlet for our students. We want our students to get back to more of a sense of school is fun, and we can do fun things at school that I pick and I choose. Other things we're doing is, in the last 2 years, we have significantly increased the numbers of students that have been participating in athletics and after-school activities. Last year, specifically as a school district and as a school, we made a large push for increased participation in student athletics and activities, and we saw approximately a 30% increase at North when we compared participation in activities and athletics to the year immediately preceding the COVID pandemic. And so we were extremely proud of that, and we're a great year of high participation in activities and athletics at North. I also like to brag about our social emotional learning team at North, and this is something I shared with the board 2 years ago when I provided the North presentation then. We have a very robust team of professionals that work with our students at North each day around their social emotional learning needs and support our students with behavior in and out of the classroom. So we're fortunate to have 3 grade level deans, 1 per grade, that get to loop with our students. So our deans really get to know each of the students in their grade levels because they will have those students at North for the entire time the students are at North. Also quite fortunate to have the same 3 deans that we started with at North 4 years ago. So each of them have now had an opportunity to be with their students for some, like our current 6th grade one is now on her 2nd group of students as a dean at North. But everyone has had an opportunity to be with their students for 3 years, which is exciting to build those relationships. We also have a behavior resource specialist, a behavior truancy interventionist, 2 behavior support specialists on that team, and we also have a mental health advocate. So we are able to provide a lot of support to our students in the area of social emotional learning, and then that behavior support in and out of the classroom. I also want to highlight some of the partner organizations that we work with that are providing help in providing that positive climate and culture at North. And so a few that I want to highlight is Greater Minnesota. They are providing counseling and therapy services to our students at school. So this increases access for many of our students who have these needs, but it also reduces the amount of time that our students are out of school. So families always have the option to seek counseling services outside of school, but that frequently results in students missing time so they can attend those appointments. It's been wonderful to have a partner in Greater Minnesota Counseling Services so our students can do that in school. It minimizes the amount of time they're lost from instruction, but still receiving their counseling and therapy services that are much needed. I also want to highlight Cairo, which is a newer partnership for North. It started this past summer. We had a summer program at North that was providing recovery services for our students coming out of the pandemic. And Cairo stands for the Center for African Immigrants and Refugee Organization. This is a program that's open to all students. This summer we had, I think, a target of 25 students, and I think we far exceeded that, and we're probably closer to 40 or 50 students served in the summer program. Born out of that success this summer in providing recovery services, specifically in math, language arts, and then social emotional learning needs, we are now starting an after-school program along with 3 other schools in District 742. Again, North is fortunate to be one of those 4 schools, and so we will have a Cairo program, recovery services provided after school every Tuesday and Thursday at North. And as part of that, we will also have a full-time during the school day, 2 or 3 days a week, depending upon the rotation, because we'll share that staff member with our elementary partner, Madison. And it's called a space agent. And so that space agent is there to, I'm going to try to do my best to remember this acronym, because space agent, you're probably thinking, wow, that's a really cool title for that person that's working in your building. And it is. So it's schools, parents, and communities engaged. And so that space agent is a full-time staff member for the Cairo program, and they're working to build the connection during the school day with the students that are being served in the program after school, but then also making the connection back to the parents for those students that are being served in the program. So again, another wonderful opportunity for us. And then Dreamline. Dreamline is a program that I think probably many of the board members are familiar with, maybe not so many of our community members. It is a program that has been around longer than I have in District 742. This is my 4th year as principal at North, and Dreamline has been there all 4 of my years, and I know they had been there at least 2 years prior to that, so I think we're in like 6 or 7 years. And it's a program provided through a grant from the Sana Foundation, and they do great work with our students during the school day by providing academic support in the classroom. So they will push into classrooms to support students that they work with on a caseload of approximately 16 to 24 students, depending upon the grade level. Grades being served in that program are 7 and 8. And then Dreamline also sponsors an after-school homework help for all students at North, in which they can sign up for additional homework help and academic support after school, also on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Other things we're doing around culture and climate is we have the Responsibility Pass program, or what we previously referred to as a Perks Pass. Students who are exhibiting our school-wide Pbis expectations of being safe, kind, and responsible can apply for a responsibility pass, and that pass will kind of grant them some additional privileges for adhering to our positive behavior interventions and strategies, school-wide expectations. We're talking about things like an additional pass that they don't need the teacher's permission to use, so they can kind of just excuse themselves from class to use the restroom. They don't have to kind of raise their hand and say, hey, is it okay if I use the restroom right now? They get to attend middle-level activities without parent chaperones if they have our responsibility pass and some things like that. And so doing that to kind of boost our climate and culture among students. And then we also have a partnership with the Conflict Resolution Center. And so this has been really helpful in restoring relationships with students and staff when there's conflict. And I'll be honest, most people know that in a middle school, there's going to be some conflict. And North is no different. We do occasionally experience some conflict. And we do our best to repair those relationships. And we're happy to have a partner in doing that. And so we have a conflict resolution specialist come over to North once a week. And she will spend part of Fridays with us working with students who maybe in the previous week had some issues getting along, and she's able to help the students process through that and move forward in a positive direction. All right, I mentioned that I would come back to our Eagle Time, and that's because it's something that I am so proud of this year. The staff members at North, when we started dreaming of what Eagle Time could look like, kind of took it upon themselves to make sure that this program was going to be a success for our students. And so what I'm sharing right now is just a sample, 4 of the 34 slides that each teacher created. So each teacher created 1 slide for their first rotation of Eagle Time, and what they were going to offer during that 30-minute block for students. And so again, that's opposite of their lunch period. We have 4 lunch periods at North, so each lunch period will have between like 6 and 9 Eagle Time options for students to pick from. And our first 2 rotations are 4-week rotations, and then after that, there'll be 6 weeks, and so they'll be aligned with the start of the trimester and then the midpoint of the trimester for the remainder of the school year. So students will have 6 opportunities for 6 different options during this Eagle Time. And the options that our teachers selected for students are very creative and quite engaging. And I mentioned early on that it provides our students with opportunities for creative outlets, for fun, for physical outlets. And so I will say that some of our more physical offerings, maybe it's basketball, maybe it's outdoor field games, things like that, have been very popular and I think very beneficial to increasing the positive engagement of our students. Getting some of that energy out at the midpoint in the day has prepared their minds well for the afternoon ahead. And so we're very enthusiastic about where this can go this year, and very much looking forward to our second rotation, which will start on October 31st. So our students are signing up for what their next Eagle Time rotation will be this week, actually. So they just finished that. And so now we're doing the hard work of getting it all sorted out and put into their new rotations. So our next focused area this year is focusing on instruction that provides positive outcomes, and our focus objectives under this area is to increase feedback on positive outcomes, increase individual student growth, and the outcome that's desired is we're going to engage students through instruction that is rigorous, relevant, and focused on individual growth. And here are some of the things that we are going to do or are already doing to work on this focus area. And so I'll first highlight that our teachers are using their professional learning time on Wednesdays twice a month to meet and plan how they are going to provide engaging and rigorous instruction for our students that is going to meet those academic needs and get our students to achieve that individual growth that we're looking for at North. We also have twice a month grade level MTSS meetings. And so this is an opportunity for all teachers and counselors of one grade level of students to get together and meet and discuss student needs. It could be specific to academics, could be to behavior, social emotional learning needs. And it provides an opportunity for the collective body of teachers that are working with students to share information about students. What one teacher is seeing in class may not be seen in another class. It gives them opportunity for that collaboration to discuss student needs and then, more importantly, discuss interventions that we can put in place to best support each learner that needs an intervention to help increase that goal of individual self-growth. Also happy that this year we are starting something new, and that we have an innovators cohort at North. So 7 of our teachers met for training this summer right after the last school year got out with Director of Innovation and Technology, Ryan Cox, to kind of discuss the possibilities of what innovation could look like, not just at North, but in District 742. Very pleased that we have 7 staff members at North that were a part of this team, and now we have our own cohort at North. The most exciting thing is that it kind of gives them the sense of freedom to try new things, be innovative, bounce ideas off of one another, and really to let them know that the sky is the limit when we're talking about trying new things to best meet the needs of our learners. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes this year as we continue to meet as an innovators cohort and hopefully move that needle on individual self-growth and overall academic achievement for North. Next thing is we are looking at providing increased number of experiential learning activities for our students, hoping that transportation won't continue to be as much of an issue as it has been the past few years, and that we'll be able to get our students out of the building a little bit more than we have during the pandemic. I'm very proud to just share that we were able to successfully have our first field trip in quite some time at North last week, and we were able to get some 6th graders out to Wilson Park for a wilderness inquiry field trip where they got to do some hands-on experiential learning with wilderness inquiry, and we got to spend some time on the Mississippi River paddling. I was fortunate, or maybe not so fortunate, to be a part of the afternoon crew that got rained on for the entire time we were there. It was nice and cold. We all went back to school wet, but we had an absolutely wonderful time together. And so again, looking for more opportunities to do things like that. And then lastly, along this focus area, we are increasing our staff's use and knowledge with the data system EduClimber. And so we have focused a lot of effort and training time in our staff and professional development this year, and how our teachers can more successfully use this platform to get immediate feedback for their students and address those learning needs in more of a real-time environment. And we've also used that EduClimber platform to kind of transition from using Skyward as the platform for teachers to submit student referrals and requests for support. And so now that's being done in EduClimber, and I must say it is far more efficient than Skyward has been. And our teachers have had great things to say about the process. We now have, when a student support request is submitted through EduClimber, we have about 10 different staff members that all get notified by email immediately. So the response when the request for support goes out is almost immediate. And so the feedback from our teaching staff at North has been, this has been a really great transition. It's something that we're a little bit apprehensive about as we started the school year, and we provided the training before school started. And glad we spent the time doing that, because it has been a very successful rollout of EduClimber for student support requests at North. The third and final focus area in our continuous improvement plan is around family and community engagement. And our focus objectives under this focus area are to create school-based connections that bring together families, educators, and the community, and to create systems and procedures to provide access and opportunity for all learners and families. Our desired outcome at North is to empower families and foster partnerships to support all students within and outside of our school. And I'll share with you now some of the really cool things we are doing in this focus area. and will continue to do and improve upon as we move forward this school year. So first thing we did was last year at the end of the school year, we changed our spring conference format. In the past, it had been a conference and a student showcase where we just kind of showcased student work. And we found that the participation of our families wasn't what we wanted. And we also felt it wasn't what our families wanted. So we moved away from the conferences and the student showcase to a family night. And it was more of a family fun night. But we did that in partnership with Title I, and we provided some educational opportunities for our families. We provided some enrichment opportunities for our students taking place at the same time. We fed all of our families who attended. We ordered a whole bunch of pizzas. We ordered a whole bunch of sambusa. And then we invited some food trucks too. And so it was a really fun, engaging, educational atmosphere. It just so happened to be a really hot day that day as well. And so I think it brought out a lot more families. And so it was a huge success. And we're going to continue that again this year, hoping to bring in even more families and have to order more food. Other things that we are doing is we have done technology training for our families, also in partnership with Title I. So North used some of our Title I money, a pretty significant portion of it, to purchase a set of Chromebooks specifically for our parents and family uses. And they're the exact same model, and this was done with intention, as our student Chromebooks, so that when we are using the Chromebooks with our parents at our parent meetings, they will see the same device that they see their child bring home, and we are encouraging our parents to use their child's device when they need to do things like checking their students' grades, check for missing assignment, checking attendance. And so we have been, and we did just get those computers in at the end of last year. We've used them already this year several times. Between our Somali family meeting that we hosted 2 weeks ago and our 2 open house nights, which occurred last Thursday and last night, we have signed up probably close to 50 additional families for Skyward Family Portal that did not have access prior. And we were able to put the computer right in front of them and say, here's how you do it. And now you can do it at home on your child's device because it's the exact same thing. So we've been really proud of that. We do have some active parent and family groups at North. Our PTO organization is known as Spirit of North. And so they meet regularly, and we'll have a meeting next week on Thursday. So if there are any North community members listening and they would like to attend, we are going to have that Spirit of North meeting next Thursday at 6 o'clock at North. We'd love to have you. We also have Somali and Spanish speaking family meetings where we conduct meetings for those families in their home languages and help address the needs of those communities in a format that is oftentimes more comfortable for them because the meeting is conducted in their home language. And we have seen great participation at those meetings and are quite thankful for our partners and our parents. Other things that we're doing to increase family and community engagement is we're celebrating our positive behavior intervention and strategy success. North, for I would say at least the last 6 to 8 years, has been a Pbis exemplar school in Minnesota. And so that's something we like to highlight. We invite our parents in once per trimester for a Pbis celebration breakfast. This is a breakfast that recognizes students who over the last trimester have again exhibited our school-wide expectations of being safe, kind, and responsible. So we invite their parents in for a breakfast and we tell them how their child has been safe, kind, and responsible over the last trimester as we share breakfast together. This year new, we are trying to create and distribute a North multicultural cookbook. So this is something that we are going to be asking our families to provide recipes for. So as part of our family engagement, family involvement committee, their goal is to publish a North Family Multicultural Cookbook this year. And so I hope that by the end of this school year, I will be able to share with each of you the North Cookbook. Real exciting. We are also bringing back our College and Career Day. It's something that was on hiatus while we were experiencing the pandemic the last 2 years, but also something we had been quite proud of in the past. So we will have a College and Career Day at North again in the spring, and we'll be very much looking forward to that. part of that event is inviting in our community members, our businesses, our post-secondary institutions to share with our students all of the potential that they have for their life outside of 742. And we've been fortunate in the past to have huge participation from community organizations, businesses, and post-secondary institutions in the area. Another exciting opportunity we're bringing to North this year, if you think back to the district kickoff, that was at Tech High School. Before school started, we had some really amazing student speakers at that kickoff. We are going to bring those speakers back to North. And those students are going to travel to our classrooms, and they are going to share a little bit about their educational experience, their life experience with our students, so that our students can learn from other students about what life is going to be like as they age, as they move on to high school and beyond high school. And they get to hear it from somebody other than an old person like me standing in front of the classroom. And then I just want to briefly highlight North is so fortunate to have really high community support from so many community partners. And so I have put a few of them on the screen, and I will just say that I want to apologize to anybody that I left out. I couldn't fit every single logo and entity on the screen that does amazing things for North, for our students, for our families, for our staff. And so I will just very briefly highlight a few of them. So you see some logos there for like the Rocks. They provide tickets and opportunities for our students to attend games. We're able to award prizes for students through our Pbis initiatives with tickets to Air Max, so kids can go to the trampoline park, skate in place. We all know Horseman has been a great partner of the school district. They're also a great partner of North Junior High, and they've provided us with multiple bikes over the years that we give to students. We can't give one to every student, but students who had perfect attendance, we would put them in a drawing for the bikes. And Namath Orthodontics every year has been donating water bottles for every student. This was extremely important during the pandemic. Our water fountains were not turned on, but the water bottle filling stations were. So it was really important that each of our students had water bottles, and Namath has come through every year with that. And so and then this year, the Minnesota Truck Headquarters, they came to North right before school started, dropped off like 150 really nice backpacks, and in each backpack were some school supplies and a gift card for each student that received a backpack. So just amazing support. And then we also have several community faith-based organizations right in the North community that have also taken really great care of us. Their parishioners have donated money for school supplies. Their congregations have provided meals for our teachers on conference nights and things like that. And so, again, we are just really, really fortunate at North to have high community support, and it's something that I'm extremely proud of. And so with that, I would just also like to say that it's not just our external community. There's a whole lot of people here in District 742 that are doing great work to make sure that North and our students are successful. And so I have just a small number of some of our staff and departments that are doing a lot of great things to help us at North and to help our students and to further our students' academic achievement. And so I'm not going to read through that eye chart, and I know it's an eye chart, and so I apologize for that, but I do want you to know that North is really well supported by our community and by our school district. And so now it's my pleasure to share with you the North Together video.
I started out as an elementary school teacher and went from first grade to third to fifth and now here to eighth at North. Go Eagles.
I've been teaching social studies here. I started as a sub and as an art teacher and then as a sixth grade teacher and then social studies. Why? Because social studies for me brings together all of what I think is so terribly, terribly important. We are part of a community. As we were taking a look at how our kids are performing in the morning versus the afternoon, it's a struggle in the afternoon. Adults don't want to focus straight for 8 hours. How on earth is a 13-year-old supposed to do it? So what do we do about that?
The idea in Eagle Time really is that the teachers get to choose a topic or a category of things that they like to do, and then students have the opportunity to pick up on whatever is interesting to them and then sign up for that particular Eagle Time.
If they can get a mind and a body break, that reset, they're able to then refocus, re-engage stronger, and have more academic success with the rest of their day.
And so this pocket has become kind of this really neat microcosm of amazing, I think.
So when I was telling our parents when they came for open house, it's like this is going to be that midday mind and body reset.
We were able to engage our students in a whole other way. They're able to pick something that they are interested in, and that engages the staff in being able to go, this is kind of a fun idea. What can I do next time so that I can get even more students in?
All right, now I'm ready to start again. They are so on board with this.
I think that they're so engaged because they have choice and they get to help. We had students who were like, hey, we don't have anything for mental health. Could we have a mental health one? That has already been put on the docket for another rotation. Other thing I like about Eagle Time that is really the flexibility for not only us to get to know our students better, but to engage those students who maybe aren't so successful otherwise. Not a really good reader, but now they have something that they can do and add value to.
What would they say they need? They need time to play. They need time to socialize with their friends. They need time to have fun. All of that is coming along for the ride by signing up for
Basketball or kickball.
field time,
Groups that are making cookbooks.
to learn to play cribbage,
There's a group that's doing coding.
to learn more about the Chinese culture and calligraphy.
Reading groups, nearly unlimited possibilities. I'm hosting a Pokemon Go outside time group, so most of the students that signed up are intending to play Pokemon Go with me. We'll literally be able to just kind of walk around the outside of the building and catch them all. I've not seen them so excited to sign up for an activity as this particular chunk of time.
We've got teachers and students working together to create this system. And parents are now getting involved. And so parents are working together with their kids to help make the choices and learn more. And then kids get to bring home. I got to experience this kind of a food group or whatever. Did you know that we have this restaurant here and they're offering this? So they can go and they can bring this out into the community. So then we're bringing that in. So we're just pulling in all the stakeholders in our community together to work for the benefit of our students.
It feels very like an open door. We get to meet our kids in a way we haven't got to engage with them before, which helps out with everything. Classroom management, recruiting kids to a new sport or activity, to make those positive connects with students who we maybe don't have in class, but we see in our Eagle Times.
I used to be one of the lead teachers in something called Eagles Act, and that was exactly what this was all about, was helping kids to see, here's where I see our community, here's a need in our community, here's what I can do about it. One of the most powerful things I've ever done in my life was bring kids to do this work. A lot of work at our local shelters, at our food banks. They led the way. They found the issue that they were passionate about. They found the things that they cared about, and they invested their heart and soul energy to make it happen. I don't have that right now, so what I have is investing my heart and soul energy into making a program that brings all our kids into a positive space here. I have the pleasure and privilege of working with some of the most awesome people I have ever met. The staff here is fabulous, and the kids, oh my gosh, they are such amazing people. They bring such gifts to the world. I'm really excited to see where they're going to go.
742 together.
742 together.
All right, I don't know about you, but that kind of brings tears to my eyes. Blessed to have passionate teachers like those two. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Oh, that was excellent. Questions, comments? Monica?
I enjoyed your presentation. I wanted to clap at the end. Then I thought it might not be appropriate, but so I didn't. But I did have some questions. Why are we the exemplary school for Pbis?
So there are multiple things that go into being a Pbis exemplar school. We have to meet the benchmarks that are set forth. So all of our teachers have to create a classroom matrix that is modeled off of our Be Safe, Be Kind, and Responsible. We have to model that in multiple ways throughout the school. And then we have to submit that to the Minnesota Pbis I don't know if it's the council, but it's through the Department of Education. And we have to kind of submit that evidence and say, here's what we are doing, and here's the evidence that we're doing it. And we've been fortunate that we are being recognized for the good work that our staff and our students are doing in Pbis.
That's wonderful. So how do we, and maybe this is for Donna, but how do we measure that? So I guess the evaluation that you just mentioned to me sounds like is an evaluation about that we are using, that we have developed and used a tool, but how do we know that that tool is effective and is being working? Is that part of the evaluation, or how do we measure that?
That's a great question, and I don't think I can answer that, at least not now. Maybe Donna can help with coming up with a tool of how we can evaluate how what we're doing in Pbis is maybe increasing student academic achievement or engagement.
I would just add, because I've actually written, and so has Mike, right? Like, we've actually written the application to submit, and I'm sure Principal Nutter has as well. There's another component to it where you have to the other part of Pbis is using behavior data to identify school concerns in the school. An easy example is Principal Nutter, I don't know if this is what they used, but they talked about, they saw that there were increased behavior needs after lunch. And so one of the things that his Pbis team would do would say, they would look at that, the office discipline referrals, they would look by grade level, by student group, by time of day, by location, and then they create a hypothesis. They say, this is the data we see, this is the cause we think it's happening, and this is the intervention we're now going to try. So in this exact case, Principal Nutter would say, oh, we put in this Eagle time, because we hypothesize that our students need this mind and body break, and then and then they would collect data again. So that's the cycle that you have to show evidence of when you're applying to be a Pbis exemplar, in addition to what Principal Nutter described. And then there's a tool, several tools that MDE gives you. It's a TIC and a SAS. I don't know what it all stands for, but it's a TIC and a SAS. And one is for students and one is for staff. And outside evaluators come in and they say, Natalie, can you tell us what the Pbis matrix is at North, and what does it look like? And based on the evaluation, the responses from students and staff, that outside evaluator or the evaluator would then give you a score. And if you reach a certain score, you can apply. And if you reach an even better score, then you qualify for exemplar, or potentially for exemplar, based on the rest of your application. It's rigorous.
Thank you. So you were talking about community building through the schools, and then you were talking about many families and getting food for families, and families are coming. How many families would you say that come to those nights, and do you have any other breakup of the demographics of those families?
I don't have any specific data on demographics. I would just say anecdotally that it mirrors our student population. And so I would say it's very representative. As far as participation rates, percentages, numbers, I would say it varies greatly. And probably kind of typical, I would say, for secondary. So as we think about like our Welcome Back conferences in August, they're the best attended, where we get, I would say, somewhere in the neighborhood of 75% of our families participating in those. And then fall conferences are also very well attended, so we just wrapped those up. I'd estimate over our 2 nights, we probably had somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 70% of our families attend conferences on one of those nights. And then conferences and different family events will typically be not attended as well as the year goes on. I will say that last year in May, when we did the Family Fun Night, we probably had 400 to 500 families there. And that was huge for us. We had never had any kind of attendance like that that late in the school year.
So when you were presenting, I had the impression that you were talking about like a family meetings in opposition to conferences. Is that correct?
So we have found, I think I mentioned that we have, our Spirit of North meetings, that's our PTO organization. And those are conducted 3 or 4 times a year, so either on the quarter or the trimester. Participation in those kind of mirrors our conferences. We don't have near as many families, but I would say as we start the year, we have our first meeting and participation is much higher. As we get into the meetings later in the year, the participation decreases. The meetings that are done specifically in Somali and Spanish, I would say we're probably somewhere around 30 parents in attendance for each of those meetings. And that's when we compare that to our, just the general parent-teacher organization Spirit of North meeting, it's comparable. Those meetings have also probably about 30 parents that attend.
And what did you speak or what do you talk about in those meetings?
Multiple different topics. So, for example, this last meeting that we did, we provided a general update on things that were new to North to start the school year, provided an update to families on how the start to the school year has gone. We always provide a time for question and answer. And then at this last meeting, we dedicated a significant amount of time to training families on the Skyward Family Portal and Schoology access. And so we will typically try to do an informational update. We will always do question and answer, and then we try to provide some type of like an educational opportunity for our families. And then, of course, the PTO, they will kind of set their own agenda on, things that they're interested in doing, maybe helping with a fundraiser, things like that.
And lastly, I wanted to thank you for, I want to give you kudos for putting help you so much in the school. And I like to have seen that because when we hear presentations from the schools, we don't really know what everybody else is doing. So it's nice to see that connection, and I like to see that. I'm also thinking that you might have a lot of people telling you, hey, you didn't put my name there and I did this. So
I'm sure I will.
I will say forgive him, but that was great.
Thank you.
So I'm pretty sure about that, and I like that you did the same for the community. And I didn't know that you had so much support from the churches. That's very nice to hear. And thank you to the community if anybody hears this.
Natalie?
I'm super proud that North is one of my schools as a board member, and also that all of my kids have gone there. And so when I see Miss Mitchell and Miss Fagallo, who all my kids have had at least one of those folks, like that's how Miss Mitchell is like every day. It's absolutely amazing. She just gets so excited about kids and for kids, and it made me tear up as well. So it was really beautiful. I really want to say thank you for your tangible results. Like I am into the percentages here. That 30% increase in student activity participation, beautiful. And I also want to call out that the dean retention mirrors the retention of you for 4 years. So that stability that we've had at North for these past 4 years is everything. So thanks for staying. And a couple more things. One thing I saw, these are both things in the data deck that we had, which is always so interesting to pore over. The student mobility rate, and I think, so I don't know if it's for 2022 or just the beginning of this year, is 30%. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So yeah, and Donna, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that means 30% of the students have either come in new or left. And so that is a pretty significant number of our students. When we think about start of the school year and the end of the school year, we are oftentimes ending with a very different population than we started with. It's a pretty transient population.
Well, and I was thinking as a former teacher, just one new student in a class can totally change a class. So if you have 30% of your students changing over and over, that's super kudos to teachers for sure. And then, I really was interested and wanted to call out that the care, so the students that took the student survey said that 86% of their teachers care about them and 77% of adults in general in the building. That's very high and beautiful. And it's just so interesting. Middle schoolers are so interesting because then they say that only 60% of students say that other students care about me. So it's again, kudos to teachers and adults that they can have that relationship because kid-to-kid relationship in middle school is really tough. And hopefully, I think that Eagle time, hopefully that'll put some relationships together for kids too as well. So that's great. I think that's all I wanted to say. This is my child's last year at North, my last child's last year. So that was maybe a little bit of the tears as well. So thank you, Principal Nutter, for being you.
Thank you for the presentation. First question that I have is, as Natalie mentioned, that 30% increase in activities participation. Is that when we say that, I want to hear a little more about the numbers there. Does that mean 30% more of the student population at North is participating in activities, or does that mean like, I'm just using numbers here, but 10% used to participate, now 13% participate, so it's a 30% increase in participation, which?
I would say it's the second, and so it's total number of participants. And so some of them might, let's say there was a student that participated in one activity in 2019 and they participated in 3 in 2021. Then that's part of what's accounting for the increase. It's all increases in participation, not just individual students increase.
And what do you attribute that to?
Well, like I said, last year we made that push district-wide, and so I think the fact that we made a concerted effort to increase participation in activities and athletics last year, I think that was huge. I think coming out of the pandemic year 2, where we were severely limited in what we could offer for students in the way of activities and athletics, I think students were hungry for opportunities to do things outside of the classroom. And so being given that opportunity really last year for the first time in almost 2 years, I think it's something that they were all jumping for.
Yeah, and I think, I don't think we can stress enough the importance of increasing participation in activities, because an increase in participation in activities will mirror almost one-to-one a reduction in discipline referrals and things. It just, kids get involved in the schools, they get involved in their activities, they care about them, they don't want to be held back from participating in them, so they behave better. That's just kind of a given, but that's huge. When we say activities, what are we talking? Are we talking athletics? Are there? I didn't see any slide in the presentation that referenced music programs or theater in any way.
So we do have theater, we do have music. So music's part of the school day, and so we don't have any specific like music clubs or activities after school. We do have theater. We have things like speech. We have debate. We have GSA. So there's a number of non-athletic activities after school, and then we do have all of the athletics, and the ones that we don't have, our 7th and 8th graders can participate at the high school.
Yeah, are we seeing any increase? Are you seeing any similar increase in music participation?
I would say it's hard to say because our enrollment at North, unfortunately, has been declining for the past several years. So percentage-wise, I would say probably at or near the same percentage of students are participating in our music programs, but because of the smaller numbers in total enrollment, the total overall numbers have probably also gone down in about the same percentage.
Okay. Second question, has nothing to do with anything you talked about tonight, but and it's just kind of some personal questions. You have a pollination garden at North.
We do.
How do you use that?
Well, I can't say that we actively use it. My understanding is this well predates my tenure at North, and that it was something that was donated by a community organization, and they, at that time when it was donated, used it for some different academic activities. I do not think any of our science teachers are currently using that as part of their curriculum, but we still do maintain that pollination garden.
So my follow-up to that was, is it, at this time, is it wild? Or do we have any intentional management of?
We have
that
had
garden?
intentional management of it the last 2 or 3 years. After, I believe it was after winter 3 years ago, all the snow got plowed there and it kind of got destroyed. And so the district contracted with the company to kind of bring that back to life. And so they have been getting some outside management of that through Minnesota Native Prairie Landscape, I think is the company that's been contracted with. And so it's thriving right now.
Okay. I asked those questions because it's out there, it's very visible, but it's also, I think it could be a really good
Absolutely.
tool for different junior high science projects and things like that. Third question is just out of curiosity. Several years ago, there was a project to improve the street crossing of 12th Avenue, isn't it? Avenue? Yeah.
12th Street.
Street, okay, 12th Street. Did that get completed, and what's the results of that been?
I think it got completed. That was at least a year before I got here.
Okay.
And so I don't know a whole lot of specifics on that. Maybe if Gary's listening in, maybe Gary knows a little bit more about that. I do know that there's a marked crosswalk at 33rd, or I'm sorry, 29th and 12th, where students there's a walk button, that the students can push and wait for the walk signal.
Yeah, I could add, that was a group of students from North, I believe it was future problem-solving group that came up with the signs with the flashing. Anyone that's driven over there before school or after school know that it's still congested. That did improve it, but it's a work in progress. We're working with the APO on some other ideas to try to get it less congested and just improve that drop off and pickup experience.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm impressed you knew that second question to that garden. Scott?
One of the things that we've been concerned with is student voice in your school. Could you tell me a little bit more about how the students voice their ideas?
Yeah. So one thing that students are getting to use their voice in this year again is that Eagle Time. So it's all about student choice. And so that's one way. The other way is through communication. And so we are using Schoology as a way for students to communicate with staff. And so we have encouraged our students through our advisory lessons that are also being conducted during Eagle Time, how to use those platforms to communicate with staff when there's a need, when there's a concern. When we do meet with our young people, we show them and coach them in the way of communicating when they need support. And we're hoping that is increasing communication. I have seen a huge increase in the number of Schoology messages that I get from students each day, and the topics are varied and great. And yes, and I love them. They keep me smiling all the time. And so that's one way. We do survey our students like all schools do. each year to kind of find out where they're at, social and emotionally, what they would like to see in the way of improvements in their school. The assistant principal and I also meet with several of our student groups. So as they have, maybe it's a club or activity, maybe it's the future problem solvers, it's a GSA. They have student council. They have issues that they discuss, and then they have scheduled meetings for us, and we'll attend their meeting, and they share with us their concerns, and we're able to provide some, usually some immediate feedback, and sometimes we get some homework from the students and are able to bring that back to other members of our team at North and work on addressing some of those student concerns to make life at North more enjoyable for our students.
Okay. We have been talking about having some student presentations to the board, primarily at the high school level. Is your level something we should be looking at also, or no?
I absolutely think middle school students could do it. Would it be a little bit different presentation than you might get from a high school student? Absolutely. But would it be just as engaging? I can guarantee it.
Okay. At one time, we had a debate, assistant principals versus deans. And of course, deans were a little bit cheaper. We get more bang for our buck. But how is that actually working out for you?
Fantastically. So I absolutely love the three deans that I have. I mentioned that they have been with me at North since I've been at North. I was fortunate as a new hire in District 742 4 years ago to be able to sit in on all those interviews. And I feel like at that time I got to pick what I consider my dream team. And they're still there. They're still doing great work. And so I absolutely love that model. If you're asking, would I trade it for 3 assistant principals? Well, maybe, but we know that would be quite a bit more money. Would I trade it for 1 more? No. And the reason for that is right now I have 1 dean per grade level. They get to build a 3-year-long relationship with each of the students in their grade. And having 1 assistant principal can't do that.
That makes a lot of sense. Cairo, what does that stand for again?
Center for African Immigrants and Refugees Organization.
How did that get established and what's it do?
So I don't know how it got established. I do know that they're headquartered in Oregon, I believe, and they do have an office in Minnesota. And so they have been doing this kind of work in Oregon and have started now to, they brought it to St. Cloud. And we're fortunate at North to be able to take advantage of their organization in partnership with the district to provide recovery services coming out of the pandemic. And that's how North got involved.
Dreamline, I'd never heard of it before. Is it a
Okay.
tutoring service or what is it?
So I wouldn't say that it's entirely tutoring. So they also provide social and emotional skills for our students. So they will do some maybe like life coaching. They will help students set individual goals and academic goals. They also, like I said, push into their academic classes to support them in their core classes. And again, it's typically either a math or a language arts class. And so they will push into that class, maybe do some one-to-one after the teacher teaches the lesson to start class. They might break away with that student and provide some additional support if needed. And then separately from that, they provide an after-school homework help, which is kind of like a tutoring program for Dreamline. So they do provide quite a lot of services to our students. And there are 2 Dreamline staff that are full-time at North. One is the site coordinator, and she's got a caseload of about 16 students. And the other one is a Dreamline mentor, and he has a caseload of about 25 students.
You mentioned Greater Minnesota Mental Health, I think it is?
Yes, counseling services. Yeah.
It's initially they're offering kind of a free service, but then once they get a hold of your insurance information, the bills go up. I've had it happen to my family.
Okay.
I'm not real comfortable with them about all I can tell you.
Okay.
Eagle time sounds wonderful. Said you put it on your lunch schedule?
So it's opposite of the student's lunch schedule.
Well, how's that work? I mean, you only get it, what, a half an hour?
Students have a half hour for lunch and a half hour for Eagle time.
Okay, so that's how you do it.
Yes.
Okay. Because I was wondering how half an hour divided in half.
Oh, that would be terrible. 15
Yeah, it
minutes
would.
is not enough time for anything.
Okay. How does EduClimber actually work?
Well, I think that's probably something that maybe Donna Roper is going to have to walk you through. So it's a data platform. If you're familiar with Skyward, I would say it's a much easier to use version of Skyward, and teachers are able to see all of their students really quickly, whereas in Skyward, it's kind of searching like one student at a time, fumbling our way through to get the information we need. It's much more readily accessible in EduClimber.
Technology for parents. I wish it had some technology for me. How does that work?
So we, like I said, with our Title I money last year, we purchased 30 Chromebooks, again, the same Chromebooks that our students use, and we purchased a cart for those. And so we're able to wheel the cart out to our trainings, and we were able to take the Chromebook right out of the cart and set it right down in front of the parent and say, okay, we're going to help you get access to Skyward Family Portal. We're going to teach you where to go in there to find grades, do attendance. If you want to submit, if your student's going to be absent, you can do that using Skyward. And so we show the families how to do all of that. We show them how to go into Schoology and see what their students are doing in class each day, find out what the assignments were that day. And so it's
You're
walking
getting-
them through essentially what their students see.
You're getting much participation.
We are, yeah. Like I mentioned, we have increased by about 50 families just in the last 2 weeks, the number of people that have access to our Skyward Family Portal.
That's a lot of training.
Yeah, and so I'll just a quick shout out to our media specialist, Mary Shadrick, who has been there for all of those, and then also our academic coach, Courtney Gook, who has been there for all of those. And so it's definitely been a team effort.
Spirit of the North, you mentioned there's like a PTA or PTO.
Yes.
What kind of participation are you getting in that?
Yeah, so start of the school year is typically pretty good. We're going to probably have 30 to 40 families represented at our meeting next Thursday. As we have our next meeting scheduled, I think it's right after we come back from winter break. We'll have a few less families that attend, and then we'll have another PTO meeting that will take place in March, and there'll be a few less families that attend. But who knows? I would like to put that out there to the families, like right now, surprise me and show up in larger numbers all year. But yeah, it kind of mirrors conferences as the year goes on. Attendance has kind of dwindled a little bit.
Okay, my kids were at Kennedy and I got involved in the PTA out there. They did some fundraisers. Does your organization do that also?
They have helped us with the fundraisers. At North, our PTO has been a little bit different than maybe some of the schools as far as fundraising goes. So they have helped us with our school-wide fundraiser. They haven't done any separate fundraisers that are specific to the PTO.
Okay. Pbis breakfast. Most kids are good kids. Do you invite 2/3 of your parents, or what do you do?
No, so we will recognize a smaller number each trimester, and so we typically would have about 30 to 40 students per trimester, and so those families would be the ones that are getting invited to the breakfast.
Okay. You have a Chinese immersion program there?
That's correct.
Nothing was said about it. Tell me about what's going on.
So yeah, we have a Chinese immersion program, all 3 grades, 1 teacher, and so that does make things a little bit difficult for us. But all of our students that are in Chinese immersion have 1 straight Chinese immersion class in the Chinese language, and then they have a social studies class that is taught in the Chinese language. So they will have 2 classes per day taught in Chinese. And because there are 3 grades, if you do the math, they get in 2 classes, that's 6 classes, but we only have 1 teacher who teaches 5 classes. And so we do combine 1 grade for their social studies section. And that's how we're able to get everybody both classes.
Wow. A poor teacher.
He's a great teacher, though.
Now, as I understand it, they sort of start that out in Madison. Are you losing students as they go through the years?
My understanding is, and so we do typically lose a few, and I think we probably lost about 4 or 5 students from Madison's 5th grade class last year coming into the 6th grade class this year.
How many are in the program now?
Total, I don't know the exact number. I'm going to go ahead and guess about 80, and that's across the 3 grades.
Student council, how involved and what's involved?
So student council just came back to North last year. I don't know how long North didn't have a student council. And so I would say it's a fledgling operation. They're getting student council off the ground. It is being facilitated by our staff member who also does our community and future problem solvers. So it will be a very engaging group. And I did, like I said, I met with that group several times last year to address their concerns. And so that was fun for me to see because I feel like all of our schools should have a student council so that their voice is represented.
How do you pick members of the student council?
So last year, anybody that expressed an interest could join. Yeah, yep. And so, and that netted about 30 students. And so we didn't have to turn anybody away. We didn't have like the popularity contest voting or anything like that. It was like, if you expressed an interest and we can fit you in the classroom, you're in.
All 3 grades?
Yep.
Okay. That's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zach?
Thank you for being a middle school principal.
It's fun every day.
Good. And I know that, it's relieving to see where you're at after just, no few years have been normal. And of course, at least I feel like I hear more about problems in the middle schools than high school. So just kind of question is that with the role of the mental health advocate, is that sliding in the way you'd hoped? And then just kind of curious as to what are some things that you're feeling confident and excited about that are working to help manage a difficult population to manage.
Yeah.
Educate.
So as far as the mental health advocate, we have a great one. Her name is Harley Waller. And we've been able to do some really cool and exciting things with Miss Harley. And so we have been able to, some of our kids who maybe have more needs in mental health, we have been able to assign them an advisory specifically with Miss Harley. For some kids, they will do a pullout or a study period with Miss Harley for as long as they might need some intervention. And so that has been hugely beneficial to have the mental health advocate position. She also has become a valuable member of our social emotional learning team. So when students may need to be removed from a classroom for different circumstances, she oftentimes is one of the resources that a student is brought to kind of process, hey, what's happened, what's gone on, how are we going to move forward? If we, she's been to the restorative practices training with the rest of our social emotional learning team, like how are we going to repair that harm that took place in the classroom, and how are we going to get you back into the right state of mind so that you feel comfortable going back into the learning environment and being that learner that we know you can be. So the mental health advocate's been huge and a welcome addition to North, and that started last year. So fortunate to have that again this year, and hope that will continue into the future. I see that as a very beneficial position. And then as far as managing a difficult group of students to manage, we always do our best. One of the things I like to remind people, and it's usually me having these conversations with parents, is kids are still kids. Kids always got in trouble. I'm going to just completely out myself right now in YouTube land to any community members that might be watching, but I do love to share this story with families as I'm meeting with families, and they say, this is going to be on your permanent record for the rest of your life. And I just try to calm families down and students down and say, the only permanent record I know of is right here in my computer. It's not going to change your life. Oh, by the way, the second day of 7th grade, second day of junior high for me, I got into a fight. I got suspended from school on the second day. Guess what? It's not going to define you. It's not going to define your life. And so my staff, not just me, my staff is having conversations with students and parents like that every day. Because kids like me make mistakes, and we try to teach them that they can learn from their mistakes and they don't have to make the mistakes again. And I think we are seeing that. I think we have also put in place some things this year that are a little bit different around safety and security, specifically with some of the increases in physicalness that we saw coming out of the pandemic. And so we do have kind of a tiered response that we have instituted across the secondaries, where we're trying to provide more support to those students who are getting into physical altercations with other students. Again, anecdotally, I think if you were to interview or just have a short conversation with any of our staff members, they would tell you that the community, the culture in our building this year feels a whole heck of a lot better than it has the last year, 2 years coming out of the pandemic. I would love for any of you to come over and stop by North someday. Our busiest time of day is passing times, right? And you probably think, oh my gosh, it's going to be chaotic. It will be for 3 minutes. And so that's something we did. We said, you know what, maybe giving them 4 or 5 minutes, it's a little bit too much time. Let's cut that down. So we've got 3 minutes of passing time. It's point A to point B, and you will be amazed that after that bell rings at 3 minutes, there'll be a couple stragglers, just a couple. And then you'll think, oh my goodness, these halls are clear and they're quiet. How did that happen? And our staff has noticed it. And I think that they believe, and I believe, we have had an excellent start to this school year.
I too received, we had in-school suspension a couple times in junior high. So things work out. It would just hearing that about, and I've heard the same with relief from a couple of teachers over there, and that's just relief for me. And just any way we can share that. If I could see just a video of the hallways, a year or two ago compared to now, that would be a stark contrast. And then, do you know why?
I don't know the exact reasons. Can I hypothesize? Yes. We're one more year out of pandemic. Kids have been in school 1 year longer than when they first, came back full in person. So I think that contributes to a part of it. Making some changes along the lines of what we're doing, safety and security and supervision wise, has probably also contributed to a part of that. And so I did speak in my presentation of how proud I am to have a really large social emotional learning team. And so that has always been a part of our success in that area. But we have also taken more of an effort to start the school year in educating our students on this is how we do school, reteaching them school-wide expectations, reteaching them the district policy for personal electronic devices, that it's going to be a way for the day. Being more consistent as a staff when we are enforcing the district policies. And so our staff has had some really candid conversations with one another in our staff meetings where it's like, listen, we're in this together. If one of you is not on board, it's hurting the rest of us. And so I think that has also played a huge role in the more positive environment we're seeing this year. Staff members are having the conversation with their colleagues saying, we got to do this together. And when you roll all that together, I think that's where we're at this year. It just feels better.
Monica?
I really appreciate hearing about that consistency through the staff to apply policy. I think that is key, and I really want to give you kudos for that. Really, really, really think so. And also, when Zach was asking you for a school environment, one of the things that have come to me that people tells me is that we see a lot more physical fights among girls than like before, or I don't know if they say more than boys, but at least more than before, and more than the stereotypical idea that maybe general public have about girls fighting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what have you done about it?
Yeah, so I would say that in the last 10 years, we probably have seen quite an increase in the physical altercation between female students. This year, I can't say that it is, I would say it's less than it was than what we experienced last year, which is encouraging, and I hope that that will continue. As far as things that we're doing, so we do have some girls groups that we run. So with students that either have shown that they have maybe a propensity towards physical altercations with other students, we sign them up for a girls group where they're able to meet with a mentor and talk about ways that they can express their frustrations with other people without resorting in physical violence. And so again, we are hoping that that is part of the reason why we're seeing a small decrease in the number of specifically fights between female students. Also, I think the tiered response that we're providing this year in response to our physical aggression, students are getting much more support after an incident occurs. So for example, first incident of physical aggression, a student is going to go to our alternative suspension program, CAP, for 3 days. And while they're at CAP, they are going to have extensive opportunity to process what happened. They'll be able to talk with a counselor while they're there about how their feelings resulted in their actions. They will have opportunity to also meet and process the incident with the person that they fought with. And so there will be an opportunity for them to engage in conversation and dialogue of what led them to where they are and how they can prevent from being back in that place again. And so, again, I think as the year goes on, I hope we will continue to see reduced numbers, not just in our female students, but all students.
Thank you very much. This was very interesting and informative and impressive. Yeah.
Brian, I just want to take a moment to say thank you. We are very fortunate that you continue to make the drive and that you have stuck with us, and you could choose to be elsewhere and yet you choose to stay with us and that North community, and that the consistency that you show and the love that you have for that community shines through. And Brian, for those of you who can't tell or don't know him very well, is a very humble person. He gives credit, right? You saw it in his language, you saw it on the screen, and I think that his willingness to listen to other people, Brian, your willingness to listen to your leadership team, to take input and really hold their vision and your vision sacred. That win time is all you. Right? And it's all your leadership team. And so to really know what those students and that staff need, and you're willing to do what it takes to get there. And so I just want you to know how very much we appreciate that, and we're grateful for you.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to our discussion and action items section on our agenda. First up, we have the first 90 days superintendent report presented by our superintendent, Dr. Lori Putnam.
Thank you, Chair Haas. This should be loading here. Dr. Green joked with me and asked where the other 10 days went, because it's really been closer to 100. There we go. As I counted out 90, and this was the next closest board meeting to that 90 days. So I'm grateful to have been here for a little over 3 months now, and I just wanted to share a little bit about my start to the year and to the school year, and my vision, which is really encapsulated in those 3 words: engagement, alignment, and accountability. Certainly our district vision and the strategies we're going to use to get there is encapsulated in that strategic plan, right? So that we know where our district is heading. When this board asked, what is your vision? And these are also aligned with my personal and professional goals. It's these three things. So I want to talk just briefly about how I worked on those this year. Starting with engagement, these are some of the strategies I've used so far to engage our stakeholders, whether it be students, families, staff, broader community. So you can see a lot of it revolves around listening. For those of you who had a chance to read Your Turn, my first message to this community, it was a lot of conversation about listening and why I'm listening, because I believe together we have the solutions to solve the challenges that are in front of us. So I do meet monthly with anybody from our community who wishes to drop in. We did our first virtual one last week, and our cabinet members often will pop in as well. I have begun those conversations also at all of our school sites. We've had 2 so far. Those are scheduled throughout the school year. And those have just been a really great time just to be in dialogue and community with any of the staff members who wish to come. I'll also be doing those for the DAO and DSB. So I'll get a chance to hear from every single person who chooses to come. I'm working on, I'm talking to students to find out what they want in a superintendent advisory and how that's going to play out for the year. And I'll be bringing that back to the board as part of a conversation around student voice. I've been meeting with key community stakeholders and honestly, anybody who has asked, right? So meeting with some of our faith leaders, some of our civic organization leaders, some of our higher ed leaders, and then people who are just like, hey, I'd like to meet with you. And so I add them into our calendar, and that's been fun. One of my efforts is also about engaging people in different ways. So I'm trying to reach out in communication differently to try to, we get a lot of emails, right? As humans, as adults. And so I wanted to find different ways to kind of grab some attention. So I made a couple of videos so far. I have one actually going out tonight on weather protocols once we get through with it here. And so just trying to find ways to be out, and I am working on working with some leaders to get out into like higher ground or promised neighborhood or some of our community spaces. So it's not just asking people to come here. I met with their union heads, which has been really cool to get to know them, especially as we were heading into a negotiations year. I wanted to know them, kind of like, we want to call home about the great things that are happening in our schools, right? Before we get into any hard conversations as teachers with our students. Well, before we get into any hard conversations with our union teams, I want them to know me. I want to know them as people and know that we're all in this together. And then, of course, joining some of the boards and local organizations such as Rotary. I'm, with permission of Chair Haas, joined the boards of Chamber of Commerce, United Way, and the Greater St. Cloud Public Safety Foundation. I am also very keen on alignment. I like systems to be organized, to be aligned, to make sense. So some of the things I've done around alignment are to make sure that we have continuous improvement plans, not only in our schools, that's been past practice, but every one of our districts, departments, and as individuals, we all, as cabinet members, all have our own continuous improvement plans. And we've worked together as a district leadership team to identify where our work overlaps with that of schools and one another. And we have this beautiful spreadsheet that shows which of us has grabbed hold of which pieces of continuous improvement plans. So I know you may have seen Tammy DeLand had grabbed hold of North and elevating student voice and telling their so it overlaps with her work, her personal passions and interests, and she now will go to that North leadership team 3 times a year and figure out and sit shoulder to shoulder with that team, so that not only is she showing that she is with them, but as a district leadership team, we're with you, and this is not work that any one of us does in isolation. And then hopefully you have seen throughout our system, throughout my communications, you'll see throughout the school communications, a clear continuous articulation of our strategic plan and how we are really making that work come alive and how we are monitoring that in an ongoing way. And finally, accountability. All of these things are well and good, but as we know, what we care about, what we value, we monitor, and that's where we see change. So we have established some accountability measures as a team. Our cabinet and our district leadership team established behavior leadership norms that you can expect from us, and those are things like assuming positive intent, making and keeping promises, and then when we break those, repairing harm if caused, finding joy, because this is important work and it also needs to be joyful work. I've also, even as a principal, it was really important to me that I was very clear about who makes the decisions and what kind of method we're going to use to make those decisions. So I developed and taught a tool that identifies spheres of responsibility for decision-making across the district, with students in classrooms, student learning in the center, and out from there, the different kinds of decisions that each level of leadership would be making. So school leadership teams, principals, supervisors, directors, cabinet executive directors, me, and then the board is there also. And then where families and communities have influence, they might not be the ones making the decisions, but that they are an influence. And then taught in the decision-making protocols. That is not new. Actually, Willie, when he first started, brought that here to our district about these are the 4 kinds of decision-making styles, and I just brought that back. Sometimes there's not often a lot of new things in education, so sometimes we just need to remind ourselves about what's out there. And so we are very, it is my hope and expectation that I am clear when I have decisions to make, what kind of model I'll use. And then that is what I expect of our leadership team, so principals and our on down to teachers and students, being clear about that. And all of our district leaders, especially following my work with our board committee, our personnel committee, who helped me refine my own personal goals, our professional goals. I then took some of that work around making sure that I was validating, as they did for me, validating my own professional growth needs and my own personal growth needs, that I made sure to do that with our cabinet members, and that was now, and I made that an expectation for them too, right? What are you going to do to grow yourself and those who work with you? And so I very much appreciated that supportive conversation from the board. And then just looking at doing a lot of listening, and so wanting to make sure that doesn't stop, that people don't say things and it ends there. So after each kind of conversation I have with community, whether it be those community meetings or the meetings in schools, we have a where we document all of the feedback that was provided to us. And then I send that out either to our entire district leadership team or to our cabinet. And people grab hold of where they see themselves fitting. If some of our schools are identifying what they want, they need. And so people say, yep, this one's me. I got this one, I'll take that. And then we're just making sure that then that communication loop gets closed so that the hard work that we are doing to engage and be accountable is seen and felt across our system. So that is a quick overview of my vision, my work to date, and I welcome any questions.
Monica? And then Al?
Thank you, Lori. I really like your presentation. I'm curious because I'm interested in the topic. So you said that you brought up the different models of what was it, leadership or decision making? Decision making. And then you said that it was important for you that everybody was clear about what model was used when you made a decision. Why is important the model? Why is it important to have that clear, the model?
Thank you. That's a great question. What's important to me is that that transparency of decision-making. And sometimes if we aren't clear and we ask for input, then people have if they don't actually have the authority to be making that decision, then there's a lot of disappointment. And then stories get created of, well, they asked, I told them, they didn't listen. When maybe that was never the intended outcome, right? I might have been saying, give me your perspective, right? As a consultative model, I'm asking for your input. I'm going to take it and make my own decision. Or it could be a decision that actually should lie with that audience, and then it would be a democratic decision, and it's a majority rules. Or for really, really important decisions that really shape outcomes or culture, we try to use a consensus building model. Or a consensus decision-making, because there are some things that are so important, like those leadership behavior norms. We all had to be all in on those because we're going to hold each other accountable, and it was going to be a bedrock of how we function together as a team. So for me, that's why that clarity is so important.
Well, first of all, Lori, you're doing something right, because it's been 100 days and we haven't had a major building fire yet.
Go tell Willie that one.
The only thing that I want
They knock wood quick.
the only piece that I want to add, and I trust you're doing it, and I believe that you're doing it and hope that you're doing it, but we're a big community, and I know I used to remind Willie of this a lot too, but we have, it's really easy in St. Cloud. You're in the St. Cloud School District, you get involved with St. Cloud, Mayor of St. Cloud, Police Chief of St. Cloud, and we have St. Joseph, we have Waite Park, we have Clearwater, Clear Lake. We've got all these different communities with different mayors, and it isn't that I'm suggesting that somehow you engage all of the mayors on a regular basis, but to make sure that those channels of communication are open and that they know that they can contact and communicate with you at any time is really important. And they're not the easiest to deal with always, because I really feel like over the years, a lot of those outlying communities have been neglected, and St. Cloud has driven the agenda, and we just need to reach out, and so that's all.
I just think you're a great communicator. Like I'm not ever unclear about what you want me to know when you make a presentation, and so I really appreciate that. And it's not like it's not too long either. It's like, because then I can just go off in my mind and all the different tangents you take. But I can tell you used to be a teacher, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. I really, and I know this is actually at the end of the meeting when I suggest future, or we can suggest future board topics, but as a leader in my organization and then in the community in different ways, I always want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I ask the people who are working with me to do. And so I think it's really like to discover if it also makes sense for the board to have a continuous improvement plan and leadership behavior norms that we consensus build around, and understanding those decision-making protocols. I know that every decision we make here is democratic, but understanding that at the committee level as well, as to how we move forward in different realms. I know that we're technically over you, but we're also all leading together. So I would appreciate us as a board talking about how we can join in some of those great things that you're doing.
Anyone else?
I was very impressed with your interest in security. It was one of the first things you did. I actually sat in on one of your conferences, and you had all the police chiefs here and all the buildings, police officers, and it was really quite amazing. We spent a whole day on security, and we even had lawyers in there telling us what we can and can't do. It was a good experience to see. I was impressed the other day at Leaf. You really know how to say thank you. They're giving us money, and you express your appreciation really well. And you didn't have any note cards. You just got up there and chatted away, and wow. I think that's pretty much it at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. We're very fortunate to have you. And then you have one more presentation here. We have inclement weather protocols for the 2022-2023 school year.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair Haas. This is a slow connection up there. Oh, here we go. All right, inclement weather protocols. As I look ahead, I would like to think that these won't ever be decisions that we have to make, but knowing that we live in Minnesota, and I think there's probably a good chance that our schools may be impacted at some point by inclement weather. And so it's one of the things, it might be one of the decisions that make me the most nervous when I look ahead, right? Because this is a very decision that happens. And so it was really important to me to get as clear as I could as a team, and to communicate as much information ahead of time as I possibly can, knowing that weather is unpredictable, right? And even our meteorologists, professionals don't always get it right. And so my hope is that by getting really clear about what we can on the forefront and communicating that, that people will know what to expect from us, and then maybe give us some grace along the way. So I want to share these tonight, and then, like I said, I will be sharing this in a video with all staff and families this evening. And the video will be, the slide deck will go out in English, but the video is in Spanish and Somali, so that all of our families have access to the information. So, before we want to make any big decision, right, we want to know what are the principles that guide that decision, what underpins those. And the first thing is, of course, student and staff safety. That is the forefront of all that we do. And thank you, Scott, for recognizing that emphasis at the start of the school year. We are also wanting to move as a St. Cloud Metro partnership. So Sauk Rapids Rice, Sartell St. Stephen, and the St. Cloud Area Public Schools have agreed to move together in our decision-making around school closures. We know that we share lots of staff or students, and what we do impacts them, and vice versa. So while we will have different things that might happen on that day, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we may do different things around makeup days, as befitting our policies or our resources. We will at least make decisions together. Another thing that's guiding us is that we know that regular school attendance or an access to education is key. A lot of our students depend on school for meals, and so we want our community to know that we don't make these decisions lightly if we're saying we're closing school, because we want our kids in person, and we want to be able to be providing them with that stability, warmth, shelter, love, education that we provide every day. We will be as predictable as we can in our decision-making in an unpredictable situation, and we will share information in a timely way, and I'll talk a little bit more about those things. So this is our commitment to the St. Cloud Metro Partnership. As I said, we will make decisions together. When we close for those first 5 days, we will be going to flexible learning. And that's an at-home learning model where we provide instruction through our online platform, Schoology or Seesaw, because our students have access to one-to-one devices and not all of our other school districts do. They may be doing other things. They may not do flexible learning. They may they may cancel entirely and just have a traditional quote snow day, but that's their decision making. Our decision making is that we are going to try to, even though we're closed, we want kids to have access to their education, and so we are going to do what we can to provide that. Student and staff safety is, again, top priority, and that's what we will balance with that need to keep students in school. We're going to be balancing that with making sure that everybody is safe. But what we want our families to know is that if we make a decision to have school and our families feel like that is not the right thing for my child, in board policy, in fact, that you guys clearly approved, families can say, I'm going to keep my child home, and as long as you let us know, families, that's an excused absence. We certainly want our students to come to school if we have not called it off, but we do want to make sure that we are providing that information for our families. Again, that sustained access to education, those first 5 days are flex learning days, and if families have questions about that, that's available on our website beginning tomorrow. This will all be updated tomorrow morning. Students will have those instructions through choice boards, Seesaw, or Schoology, and of course our students have access to teachers and staff during those days. So students can email, call, or be in communication. Predictable decision-making. For cold weather, that's a little bit easier than it is for snow, fog, a blend of all of that. So what our families can know from us is that as area partners, we have committed that the point at which we will close will be 35 degrees below zero. And that would be either base temperature or wind chill. That is the temperature that had been used in the past. That was changed slightly over the last year when Superintendent Jett and some of the other superintendents made different decisions on their own. And so that did fluctuate slightly, but 35 degrees is the standard temperature and that most districts around the state are committing to. And again, that's base or wind chill. We are going to use the St. Cloud location. So temperatures could look different if you're looking at St. Joseph, if you're looking at Rice, if you're looking at St. Stephen. But when you look on the map, and we are using the National Weather Service, or NOAA, those are the same, two sides of the same coin. When reported by the National Weather Service in St. Cloud, a temperature of 35 below, that would be the indicator that we would be making for that cold weather closure. If the temperature is predicted to rise above 35 by that 9:30 point, which is really when our kids are getting out on the bus, if we were to do a 2-hour late start, we could look at that as a possibility. For inclement weather, it's not quite as quote unquote easy. I won't say that that's an easy decision to make because we want to, of course, keep our students in school and safe all at the same time. But what families can know that when there is a forecast of snow, ice, wind, or an accumulation of those factors, we'll be looking to our transportation and local city and county officials to tell us what's out on the ground in that morning, right? What is it, or what's that prediction? So that's we can't be quite as clear, but we want our families to know those are the factors that we'll be looking at. And whenever possible, we will avoid early releases. That's hard on our staff, our students, our families. That's when our teams are really scrambling and parents are trying to leave work early, and that's just tough. We can't promise it'll never happen. Weather conditions can change, but to the extent we can, we will avoid that. And we will make timely decisions. So whenever possible, we will make decisions about closures or late starts the evening before. Because we are committed to having our students in school whenever possible, we may not be able to make that decision in the evening. If we can, we will make that decision by 9 o'clock. We will have communicated by phone to our students, to our families and staff by 9 o'clock. If you haven't heard from us by 9, you don't need to keep checking to see has it come up on WCCO yet, or are they going to call me? Nope. If you haven't heard from us by 9, we're not going to call you or communicate that evening. Instead, we'll start making decisions and prior to 5:30 so that we can be alerting staff and families and our community between 5:30 and 6:30 a.m. So that's what we are committed to in terms of a clear, timely communication. Just some other important information. We really want to encourage our families. As it's going to be 70 this weekend, it's hard maybe to think about what that inclement weather plan might be for childcare, but that can sneak up on us. It was before my time here, but I hear there was a blizzard on Halloween. So you just never really know, right? And so we really encourage our families to have a plan. In the event of a school closure, a late start, or even that early release, make sure that you and your child and your child's teacher for elementary know what to expect on those days. In the event of a school closure or early release, there will be no activities or practices. So if it's not safe to be in school, we don't want our families or our students trying to drive and come to practice or events. So all of those will be canceled. The rare exception could be if there is a section or state level event, then the superintendents involved would have that conversation because those impact more than just us, right? That impacts the whole state system. So we want our families to know and send our appreciation to our Boys and Girls Club partners that in the event of some cold weather closures, we'll have Kids Stop available at selected locations across our district. During inclement weather, that is closed, but during cold weather, they will be open. And again, there is more information on our website. It'll be available tomorrow. We encourage our families to come back to that spot for any additional information. And I want to say again, thank you to all of our community for your understanding and your patience. If we are in the event of having to navigate these challenges, we'll hope for a mild, I won't say warm, but a mild winter, free of any road hazards and potential dangerous conditions. Questions?
Al?
The first 5 days are Schoology and different, okay, like that, the in-home learning. What about the second 5 days? What occurs after those first 5 days, if we would get to that point?
I worked with Tracy before coming here to make sure I got it right. It's a 530. She taught me 530. So we've got the first 5 days that were approved for flex learning by the state. The next 3 are kind of questions. So they would either be at home, no makeup, right? Because we can only have 5 flex days, right? It's not like we could keep doing flexible learning until we couldn't, right? We only get 5 from the state. So the next 3 would be up to us as a team to decide what's going to happen with those. Are we going to make them up? Are we going to add them in June? And then if we were to go beyond that, we are out of choices because we would have hit the minimum number of school days allowed, and those would have to be added on to the end of the calendar. So a 530.
So what would be the options?
For the 3? So if we were in that point of having where we were closing days 6, 7, 8, those we could either have the traditional snow days, right, and where we aren't doing at-home learning, so that no at-home learning there. We would either add them to June automatically, the board and I could say
after the
Yep.
3, right?
Those 3, so 6, 7, and 8, we could either say, yep, we're going to say we want the district to make those up. We could say we don't need to make it as a student contact day. We want that to be professional development. Or we could say we aren't going to, that's just a forgiven day because we have that as allowable in our school calendar per the state. I hope they're not continuous days. That would be a pretty significant blizzard.
One of the options is that we just have a traditional snow day.
Yep, traditional snow day.
3 traditional snow days.
Right.
So it'd be unlikely that we would choose to have some other option on it. I'm trying to get in my head, if the legislature is saying, or if MDE
Yes.
is saying you can only have 5,
Yep.
their fear must be not that we're going to have 5, but that we're going to have 25.
Correct.
And every day that the wind blows, we say there's no school.
Correct.
So they're trying to limit the number of days that we have. And this might be a rhetorical question in a way, but wouldn't it make more sense if MDE put together a set of protocols such as that and said, if the temperature is 35, temperature and wind chill is 35 degrees or more, less, then you can have a snow day. And if that happens 25 times, that happens 25 times. Would that not make more sense than going to, there's this period in there that, to me, it doesn't make sense to have in-home learning days, and then for the next 3, say you get the day off. And then, I mean, it's like you almost, it almost encourages, and don't take that wrong, but it almost, from a student standpoint, it would almost encourage going past the 5 days. I mean, it's like you do 5 in-home learning days, but then the next 3 are a really easy choice. And then you go back to I don't know what happens after that, then.
They could be, right? They could be at traditional days, or we could as a team say, yes, they're at home days, and we're going to add them to June, right? So they aren't necessarily freebies, but whether the state
I have a hard time seeing us saying that we're going to add them to June, especially when it's in all the contracts that we have X number of snow days. So to me, it wouldn't make any sense whatsoever, but it seems to me that the legislature could step up
They could.
and redefine how they do that,
They could.
and that would solve a lot of problems statewide. Maybe we could suggest that to them.
I guess it could be part of the legislative platform.
It can't be part of the platform, but it could certainly be part of a conversation.
Okay. Are we ready for Tracy? Moving on?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, I'd gladly show it to you. It's just.
World premiere?
It's just that you won't be super. Putnam, Superintendent of St. Cloud Area Schools. And I want to take this opportunity to talk with you a little bit about our inclement weather protocols. As Minnesotans, we know we are going to be challenged by the weather at some point. And this is never an easy decision to decide, should we close school? Should we have a late start? What should we do? So I want to go through some of what you can expect from me, from us as a district, and in the end, hope that provides a little more clarity so that when the hard decisions come, you know why we made the decisions that we did, and hopefully give us some grace. Here are the guiding principles of our school closures. First of all,
Get 'em out, Rosa.
Protocolos de inclemencias climáticas. Asociación con St. Cloud Metro, Sartell, San Steven y los distritos escolares del área de Sac Rapids, Rice y St. Cloud han acordado tomar decisiones de cierre de escuelas juntos. Sí o cuando ocurren cierres de escuelas.
Thank you.
Okay, so Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations, and she is going to rock out, what do we have? 5-second readings. So first up, proposed revised board policy 210, conflict of interest. 5 of them, yep. Oh, yeah. 5 seconds each.
5 seconds each, that's a challenge. I accept. Good evening, Chair Hawes, Superintendent, and board members. These are second readings of these 5 policies. As we discussed last meeting, most of these policies are largely guided and directed by statute, and I would say 90% of the changes that were presented last meeting are non-substantive and are, cleanup or changes of references and things like that. So I'm happy to project any if you'd like to see them again, but I won't do that unless people have questions. I'll start with Board Policy 210. That is the conflict of interest policy for school board members. The only change to that policy was the change in the income earning limit that a school board member could make as an employee of the district while also a board member. And that moved from $8,000 to $20,000 in earned income as an employee. Any questions about 210? Keep it rolling, then we're good. Keep it rolling. Okay, 410 is the family and medical leave policy. You'll recall this one is all statutory, guided by federal and state law. There were no substantive changes to this policy. Did anyone have any questions from last time? There were no recommendations for that last time. Okay. Moving on to Board Policy 413, the Discrimination, Harassment, and Violence Policy. There was feedback from members last meeting to not accept the MSBA recommendation to shorten that list of the protected categories under state law, race, color, creed, religion, disability, et cetera, and to keep that whole list throughout the policy, and so that change has been made. Board Policy 414 is the mandatory reporting policy for children. And again, those were organizational changes and reference changes in that policy. Any questions about 414? Okay, and last we had Board Policy 415, which is the parallel policy for mandated reporting regarding vulnerable adults. And again, same non-substantive changes in that policy. Any questions? All right, that was about 5 seconds. Good work.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to, we have a Board of Education Standing Committee reports. I believe we have 2 tonight. Natalie, are you ready for Achievement, Integration, and Equity Committee
I am ready.
report?
We were here at this very table 12 hours ago, meeting, in fact. We talked about 2 different things. One was online education. I know we all heard at a board level that MDE has approved our 23-24 school year application. We talked about some possible potential next steps in that realm, and the board will hear more about that on November 2nd, so coming up. And then we discussed Indian education compliance. Lacey talked to us about the process of concurrence and non-concurrence, which is something that's presented to us each year as a board. And it's basically, it's once we hear concurrence or non-concurrence, it's the board's job then to write a letter saying, here's the deal, and here's what we're doing, and of course, a lot of the times we rely on the experts to help us with that letter. So Lacey's question was, what should the process look like? So right now we have timeline, but who should be involved and what would be best for that? And so the board members that were present said, it's so great that you're the expert in the room, and so we would like you to tell us what would be best from not only Indian education perspective and from ION's umbrella of their work, but then also from a parent's perspective. We ask questions like, would it be helpful for a board member or for someone from the cabinet or for Superintendent Putnam to come to parent meetings, or what would be the most helpful to make this process one that is a partnership between the parents of our Indigenous students and the district. So Lacey will be coming back with a potential process at our next meeting, and then we'll go from there. We will still have that same timeline where it is that January, February, March, where we're hearing the different things from the parent committee. One thing she wanted everyone to know, and I didn't put this on here, but I thought it was really great way she put it, that concurrence and non-concurrence is what comes from the parent committee, and that's different than being in compliance. So we are in compliance when we follow the process that MDE says we need to follow, and we do that every year. Concurrence and non-concurrence is part of that partnership between parents of the Indigenous community and ourselves as the district. So it was a great meeting. Next time we're talking about all the things somehow in an hour. So we will meet in November on November 16th, again in this room at 8:30. That's all I have.
Appreciate the definitions there, too. And then we have Board Finance and Audit Committee Chair Al Dahlgren.
Yep, Finance Committee met October 14th. We had 5 items on the agenda. The first one was the discussion about the online public school. Ryan shared a PowerPoint presentation with information that came out of a group that had been discussing an option for the district to offer an online school. The board will be presented information at a future board meeting about an online school option for 6 through 12 students for the 2023-2024 school year. I think that's our next meeting, correct? So we can look forward to that. Apollo sign was the second one. Back quite a while ago, the board voted to look into this, and we voted to provide funding for a sign, an electronic sign for Apollo. And Gary shared information about the proposed sign and location options. The estimated cost is $67,425. This includes electrical work for the needed installation of the sign. The cost would be covered by the remaining bond funds, which was previously approved by the board. Gary will check on limits of size of signs, et cetera, and that's an ongoing process right now. Next, we had an update, let's see, Apollo turf update. Amy presented information on the estimated cost to install turf and resurface the track at Apollo, and the committee discussed potential funding sources. Next was a Board Policy 705. Amy reviewed the Board Policy 705 with her suggested revisions. This policy had been brought to the committee previously, but there were questions about a few sections and wanted clarification from MSBA, which we have received. The committee discussed and recommended that it go to Board Development Committee and then to the school board. Board Policy 720, Amy is suggesting this policy be repealed as it is procedural and there's no statutory requirement for it. It will be brought to the Board Development Committee and then to the school board with a recommendation to repeal, not appeal, repeal. Fix that, Amy, in the notes. MSBA has agreed that this policy is not necessary, and it also intends to remove it from their policy manual in the future. And that was our Finance Committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Then, last up, we have future agenda items. November board meeting and work session topics will include Central Minnesota Virtual Academy, Minnesota State High School League Report, 2023 Board of Education Legislative Platform, schools updates, policy readings. And at this time, does any board member want to suggest any future agenda items? Natalie?
I have no idea how to go about thinking through what we want to do as a board level. Just with my suggestion of, if the district's doing that, could we also mirror that somehow? I don't know if that can go to a committee. I might be thinking Monica's committee because you're like in charge of the trainings we have, yeah? But I don't know if that makes sense. So I don't really know how to take the next step in that process, if we want to do that process, if we get consensus around that process, all of that. So I don't know what the next step might be. This is the thing I brought up after Lori's presentation where I was saying if everyone else in the district has a continuous improvement plan, and then it would seem to be right that we would also have one as a board. But that's only me as 1/7 of the board saying that's something I'd be interested in. So I don't know how to have that conversation.
Do you want to draft some thoughts, some more details on exactly what you're thinking about that, and then send it to Monica and myself, and then?
Those are my only thoughts, but yes, I can think more about it.
okay.
I just thought about it since I'm seeing Lori's presentation, but maybe Laura and I can talk about, your process behind the scenes a little bit more, and yeah, I'll think about it and then.
Al?
And Natalie, you know that you and I see things differently once in a while.
Al, it's never happened.
But I do want to say on that subject that whereas the district is a team and they have a leader, and the leader's role is to bring collaboration and bring people to a specific vision. The school board is a collaborative board that's supposed to have a lot of different ideas, and we come together and collaborate and make decisions. And so for the school board to have a unified vision needs to come out of a lot of different varying perspectives. And I think it's a different process. I mean, I think once we make a decision, I think it needs to be unified, but I think it's really, it isn't about unifying the board, it's about the board being unified in its decisions, whereas in the staff, it's about unifying the staff toward specific, I don't know if I'm clear on what I'm trying to say, but
That's because I'm not clear on what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say
I know.
either. So we're like just dancing around something that's a little bit unclear. And I think I can get more clarity from Dr. Putnam. And then, and like I said before, like we are a democratic body. So the different styles of decision makings, we only have one. When 4 people vote yes and 3 people vote no, the 3 people that vote no, too bad. Get on board, let's go. So totally understand that there's a difference, and yet some of the things I'm thinking about, and this is what I'll suss out a little bit more with Dr. Putnam, but like we have processes of what we just do. So like every board member has 2 or 3 schools. Every board member has this many, you're a chair of this committee and you're on these 2. Like, are those all serving us well? Like as a board, is this model of the way that we've done our own leadership still the right model? And we could look at it and then say, yeah, actually that's super kick butt and we should continue it. Or maybe there are some changes. So it's that continuous improvement model that I just super love.
yeah, I can support a lot of that. I just don't want to lose the idea that we're in and we're going in our own direction.
Al, I don't
have to
agree
make
with you.
decisions.
I am a dog, not a cat, so.
Monica? Were you raising your hand? You're good?
I'm
Okay.
good.
That's good for now.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for watching. It is 8:47 PM, and we will be back November 2nd. Have a good night.
That was really funny. Didn't see that one coming.